Okay, we are live. Pretty excited to be hosting everyone this afternoon here in Cleveland, Ohio, from the headquarters of Tremco Construction Products Group. I am joined here today in the office by the group president, Paul Hoogenboom.
Thanks, Marcy. Hello, I'm Paul Hoogenboom. I'm the group president for Tremco Construction Products Group, which is a family of companies. And Marcy, you're going to be describing who's in that family for us today.
Yes. Thanks, Paul. As we mentioned in our correspondence with all of you, we really wanted the opportunity to reach out today and have this live engagement. It's unfortunate with the time that we're living in that we weren't able to actually have you and host you here in Cleveland, but we thought that this was a great way for us to virtually reach out to all of you. The good news is this is just the beginning. We are going to continue to reach out to you virtually, and we're going to be looking for different ways, different platforms of engagement so that we can continue to do this. So as we go through, if you have questions, please ask them. We want to be able to walk you through what that tour would have looked like had we been able to have that chance to host you. As we go through that engagement, we're going to stop through via photos, our manufacturing facility. We'll be doing training, demonstrations. We'll look at our test facility and our R&D facility and how we do testing. So we'll give you what we like to call, what would that, Paul, the sweet and simple? Is that how you put it?
Well, sometimes I call things plain and simple.
Plain and simple, okay.
And plain and simple, you'll come to learn on our tour, one of our sessions, Marcy, is a warranty that the last time I counted had 156 words and no exclusions.
Very good. So absolutely. So once again, we're excited to have all of you here today. I'm very excited to be able to co-host this, Paul Hoogenboom. Thank you so much for your time today. I know we have both been very anxious to have this type of engagement. It's sometimes, Paul, what was it? We'd have up to 5 of these kind of tours through the facility, through our manufacturing facilities a month. Yeah,
we were always limited to maybe 20 or 25 people. So, which is because it's a very personal interaction. So we're going to learn a lot about how to reach a broader group in an online session. Yeah,
we're looking forward to that. So as Paul mentioned, you know, normally we would have that it could be anywhere between 20, 25 people, or maybe a more intimate setting of 5 people. So with this engagement, we're looking for your input too on how we can engage personally. We don't want to lose that personal touch. And so once again, what we thought we would do is kind of walk you through a virtual tour of where we're at. We also want you to know that as we investigate this type of platform and future platforms, we're really looking at the ability to have you go into our plants virtually and take a tour. So in talking to the different coworkers that we have here that are just so smart with the technology they can work with, they are looking at ways to do that 360 view. So you'll actually be able to walk through the tour from your own home. So let's take a look at a few slides here that we prepared in order to walk you through that tour. So obviously here, as we get started, we just wanted to kind of give you some of those segments that we walk through. But I think the key part of this, Paul, and I think you and I feel the same way about this, is it's about welcoming people home, right? So we're welcoming you to Cleveland, but we want you to think when you're on this tour, whether you're physically here or virtually, that this is your place, this is your home.
Yeah, I think that's the most critical message, Marcy, we always deliver in person right at the very beginning, is that our facility is your facility. It's a very, it's a significant investment that we've made. It's 90 years of Tremco history and experience, and it's available to you once you leave today. Everything you see today is available for you and for anybody that you support, your customers, but it's yours. And interact with Marcy and off we go.
Yeah. And what's great is today you're only going to virtually see Paul and I, but in the future we're going to have guest speakers that are going to come in, and we're going to be able to have live feeds from Miami, from Denver, Colorado, wherever that need is, and wherever our segment takes us. So we're really well supported with so many different individuals, so many different colleagues that really support us in all of these different types of initiatives that we have.
I think, Marcy, one other key is that it's not only the individuals who are watching, but you can bring your customers as well, right? So yeah. It's really to help support you in supporting everybody that you in turn support out there in the field.
That's good. Good message for sure. Okay, So obviously, with those of you that are on the phone, we wanted to just make sure that everyone was well aware of all the different products, services, and resources that are available to you when you think of Tremco. So that Tremco Construction Products Group combines Tremco Roofing, Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing, Dryvit, Nudura, and Will Seal. What we believe is if you can design and engineer it together, we can build and protect it. Now, I stole those lines, Paul, from a recent video that was put together by the Construction Products Group from Europe. They put a great video together, and I stole some of that from them. So it was a very good video.
Yeah, they're very, very aggressive in Europe at this point in taking this message to the market. Very, very well received.
With that, once again, I think as we continue to grow, we're growing with our resources, which we like to call our people. At this point, Paul, what is that number of feet on the street that we have?
Slightly over 1,200, Marcy. So it's a very big,
yeah.
Probably the largest workforce in the industry, in the field, able to go on job sites and support everybody.
And that's why I chose some of the pictures you're seeing here. The handshake, right? We want to be that hand to shake. Tremco's there for you on the job sites, and all the different faces down below. That is just part of those 1,200 that we have that are supporting you each and every day from Tremco.
I think the key, Marcy, even though we're today going to live in a more online or virtual world, in the end, construction does happen in the field. I always call it belly to belly. And it's a very strong commitment and growing commitment on our part to have those resources in the field.
Absolutely. And I think being up on technology, it'll just help us be able to engage as much as possible on those job sites as well, and then how we can handle it virtually. And I like the picture on the bottom there of Paul with one of our interns. It's my son. And it just shows the dedication that we have on every single level here at Tremco to really engage with our internal and our external customers. Yeah,
there's been a great focus here for the last, say, I think 7 years, Marcy, in our intern program to engage 18, 19, 20-year-olds. On I've always felt if a young individual would come join us for a summer, then they'd want to come hang out with us for a career. And I think we have about 55 or 60% success rate when we do that.
Yeah, if you check out the Tremco YouTube channel that we have, there's a lot of videos on there, and one is an intern video, and I was watching it earlier today, and there is a lot of people in that video that I know are now working for us. So that's definitely the case. As we talk about Tremco and that construction products group, we just wanted to make sure everyone was well aware of all the different products, services, and systems that are available to you as a customer, that we obviously will provide those resources both on the job site and in our R&D and manufacturing facilities to help you with whatever it is that you need. And we like to focus on project-specific needs too. So we'll get into that as we start our virtual tour, but we didn't want to get started without showing you that great amount of the versatility we have on your building enclosure to really give you, I don't know what the right word is here, Paul, when you're thinking about that holistic approach. I like to think of, I used to tell people, if you have a leaks in your building, think of Tremco, because we've got something for it.
Yeah, I think, Marcy, the way you and I always like to describe it is it's the interfaces. It's not the monolithic glass, it's not the monolithic part of the wall, but everywhere there's a joint or an interface, that's really where we really run to that interface to provide that connectivity.
Yeah.
And that one-stop solution. And back to, I mentioned before under that plain and simple warranty, so 156 words, no exclusions. We'll take that building envelope responsibility on that full building warranty. It's a very unique approach in the industry.
Yeah, that's incredible to be able to have that, and it's those interfaces, as you mentioned, where we know from all the research we've done and the information we've been given that it is about detailing and terminations and connectivity.
Yeah, what I guess we in the specification like to call by others. And we would like, we put the word by others in quotes and just substitute the word Tremco for that, Marcy, and that pretty much captures what we do.
Absolutely. With that, what we're looking at, and a lot of the recent companies that you saw on there from the Tremco Construction Products Group are products like New Brick. So our way to be able to take what you might have been installing in terms of a clay brick on your building with all the necessary support you needed without giving you that benefit of added exterior insulation. We're accomplishing that with something like New Brick. We also have our insulated concrete forms from Nudura. So imagine that structure that you're building, able to have something that has insulation as part of that assembly, and then the concrete. So you've got that uniform construction assembly that is provided by Tremco as well. And then further, all of our different coatings, membranes, and different types of solutions that help speed up and simplify job sites, like our Puma products that you can get on within an hour of installation, or applying air barrier membranes when it's snowing out. So I think those are those things that are incredible, but at the same time, we focus on performance too.
Yeah, I think what's kind of interesting, Marcy, is you note speed and simplification, which is of course of great value to the owner getting their building completed faster. It's a great value to the trades to be more effective, more efficient. And then you noted without compromising performance, but what's going to be exciting when we get together with this group on a weekly basis is it's really industry leading performance as well. We have an objective whenever we design a new system. We always start out with a goal to make it 80% more labor efficient than the prior system. Sometimes we don't get quite to the 80, but we get really close. So we think that whole speed and simplification approach, it's really the foundation of all our product development.
And I don't know if you caught that, Paul said weekly. So we will be engaging with you weekly. We'll touch on that at the conclusion here. We've got some set topics. We want to take a deeper dive, as I mentioned, into these elements of our tour, had you been here and we were able to host you. And we really want to make that an engaging experience for all of you. If you were wondering where we are at, Paul and I are currently sitting right below that Tremco logo in our Beechwood headquarters. So right there in the executive meeting room on the 3rd floor. And this would be where we would kick it off with our tour. So when you come to Cleveland, we have several manufacturing facilities here in Cleveland. We have our East 80th plant, and we have our Mamico manufacturing facility. South of here in Ashland, Ohio, we have our gasket, our glazing, extrusion, rubber facility. So there's 3 different manufacturing facilities that could be a part of your tour.
Yeah, I think these are interesting pictures you have. You know, the QC lab for us is an extension of our R&D group, and so we share a lot with you in that room about all of the equipment is in there and what the purpose is, and so it's a pretty interesting discussion there about how impactful that lab facility is. You see a bubble test right in the middle there. That's our field-based wind uplift testing, which we consider a best practice and hope to see evolve in the industry as a standard. It's absolutely critical for us in restoration. Our small K improvements, we share a lot with you about how we engage our workforce, and like to, you know, our goal is to have our workforce act like owners, and that's of course a real challenge for us. But most importantly, I think you think of a company like ours and you think R&D is about chemistry. Actually, when we get you into the plant, you're going to see really half of R&D is a partnership with manufacturing. And we'll share with you very openly that our ability to manufacture, do things that historically have been considered impossible to do. And that's really a strong partnership between the R&D lab and the manufacturing facility itself. So that's why we love to host you in our manufacturing facility. It's not just interesting to see how things are made, it's really a foundation of our innovation, Marcy.
Exactly. You know what's interesting, and as I mentioned, we're going to take a deep dive in future segments into each of these even further. And in speaking to our guests and folks that have been able to come through the facilities, especially they went down to Ashland, and you know, here they are, they're in a bus. It's what, an hour drive south of here. You know, they didn't know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and when they came back, they were like, it was incredible for them to be able to tour that facility. Yeah,
Ashland's. You know, there are times in your life where you get a chance to go somewhere and you're like, wow, that's how that's actually done and that's how it's actually made. Yeah. And Ashland is one of the largest extruded gasket plants in the world. And it's a real eye-opener to see how things are actually made and manufactured there. A lot of it custom. So the ability for us to really create things from scratch and do it in 24 or 48 hours with some pretty high-tech capabilities and equipment down there. But it's sort of a gee whiz. There's a lot about our manufacturing, Marcy, that even today when I go through, I'm pretty proud and I'm always amazed at what comes out.
It's impressive. And I know when we do these tours live, we talk about the quick turnaround time that we have on some of those custom gaskets and glazing materials. And Paul always challenges everybody about 3D printing capabilities. And he would like to see it one day where every sales rep had one of those in his cars and to speed that up even further.
Well, that's a great example, Marcy. 5 years ago, probably a 16-week turnaround to get a custom gasket. And today we probably can do that in 2 or 3 days. So it just opens up a whole solution set. I always call gasketing dry and then I call sealants wet.
Yeah.
And so it really opens up a world of taking the best of the wet and the dry world together and solving problems very, very quickly for our customers. It's actually been breathtaking, Marcy, to see the changes in the last 5 years.
Technology is definitely changing. So that's one of our stops if you came to visit us, and this is one of our segments that we'll do in the future. We'll take a deeper dive into those manufacturing facilities and talk about innovation, talk about those lean and sustainable savings that we really focus on from a manufacturing facility. So next up on the tour, big focus of ours, and will be virtually as much as we're able to, is doing training and demonstrations. So obviously a key part of our partnership here in the Tremco CPG world is our contractors and our installers. So we like to give them the opportunity, as well as training general contractors and consultants, how products are installed, those do's and don'ts that I think are really helpful on a job site. Tell me a little bit more, Paul, what do you like about that part of it and the Medina Barns where we do a lot of this?
Yeah, first of all, I call it the Medina Barns because it's an old horse farm. And so this was one of the barns that there was a substantial stables of horses there. And so it's a repurposed barn that is a training facility for us. Several years ago, Marcy, a group that came through said this is really like a fantasy camp. So it was a group of architects and engineers who said, we've always been taught about these things, but we've never been able to go hands-on and actually install them ourselves, feel it and see it and touch it. So I like to describe it as a fantasy camp for building construction materials and our systems. And I think it's a very powerful way of learning that you can, you'll have our most elite product people and elite instructors, but you'll go hands-on with our products and systems. And I think that's, for most people that come through, they're saying it's the first time that they've ever engaged that way. And we get a lot of positive comments about how powerful that learning experience is.
Absolutely. So look for more ways that we're going to look at being able to engage with you all. I mean, we will get back to the point where we can bring you out to these barns, but we will be doing training at different locations, at contracting firms, at our distributor locations, and looking for ways to continue to engage. So we definitely don't want to lose that engagement. What's great for Paul and I when we do these tours is generally the way the days went is people came in, you guys came in for time and you did training and demonstrations on day one. We got to greet you on day two at the test facility. So we got you after you've already been exposed to a lot of the products and a lot of the training and a lot of those engaging presenters, as Paul mentioned, that we have that do these types of trainings. I
think, Marcy, going forward, again, in the socially distanced world we're going to be in for a while, we're still very, very both capable, and we very much desire that what you see from us on a weekly basis regarding training and demonstrations, just let us know. You need somebody from our team to be come to your facility and train a local group of your team and your customers. We're very, very happy to do that. We'll probably be masked up and gloved up and very socially responsible. But again, as we shared at the beginning, fundamentally, building construction is still about being in the field and what I always call belly to belly. Of course, 6 feet apart now.
Yes, belly to belly, but 6 feet apart. So with that, that's where we generally would engage with you. So, you come into our facility if you were on this tour at 7:30 in the morning, all bright-eyed and ready to go most of the time. And we are able to someone described it as Universal Studios. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's definitely exciting and impressive. The space that we have, the assemblies that are in there that people get to touch and feel, and then we walk them through, once again, just all the different resources that are available to them as a customer and which is available to you as our customer. And that's where we really get to that point of saying, welcome home.
I think, the key message we always try to share at the test wall is it's about proven systems, most importantly, exactly yours. So we have the ability and want, before you build a major project, we'd love to have you come in with your design team, with your lead supervisor, and let's go ahead and do a mock-up. And I think, Marcy, the thing that we always like to share is that typically on your first mock-up, you're going to have some type of failure. It's often sequence of installation. We work with you to iron that out. And then one of the services that we provide is the 3D animation so that you can start off every day on your job site with exactly that right sequence of installation. So this whole notion of what I would call proven systems, and that isn't just a one-off, it can be done on every job.
Yeah, the 3D animation, I think, is such a critical part of it because it really shows that sequencing of how things come together. And I think that's a critical step for everyone to understand, because we know that if things aren't sequentially installed, and we've proven it, that you could have issues in the field.
I think the one other thing we like to do at this test facility is really open everybody's eyes to the ability to restore a facade, right? So today there's most conventional thinking says, I call it, you have to reskin a building, and we'll share very much in this setting. No, you actually have the ability to restore in place and get 20 or more years of warranted high performance life in an easily maintained system. So this is also where we spend a lot of time on facade restoration, Marcy.
We're getting several questions coming in right now about the test facility and testing. So a couple of the questions are, they want to know what testing we've completed and is there a library of that testing? Currently, there is a variety of information on our website with those tested systems, but we will be doing a deeper dive into that testing in one of these segments. And then if you look, if you join, excuse me, on my LinkedIn page, Dante, Maren Petrie, and I will be posting virtually a lot of this testing and those results. So we just posted one last Friday about some adhesion testing that we did with Nudura insulated concrete forms and Expert 230. We're going to be doing another one here soon that goes into how do you submit for project specific testing. So like I said, we'll take a deeper dive into one of these segments specifically into testing and that test well portion of the tour. And then if you go to my LinkedIn or Dante's LinkedIn, we will have virtual engagements of us talking about this testing. So 2 different ways that you'll be able to get that information. The next part of the tour is really where I hand it over to Paul at this point. So he goes through what we call the Roof Tech 2.0 portion of the facility tour.
Yeah, so this is adjacent to our test wall. It's kind of cool that they're back to back in the same facility. But the way I like to describe this part of what we share with you is to stop throwing out and then rebuying what you already own. So in this case, it happens to be, the convention in the industry has always been, Marcy, that when your roof assembly gets wet, you have to tear it out,
right,
throw it away, and then replace it. So that really means you're spending $3 out of every $4 just replacing what you already bought, and then of course you put the new waterproofing on. So here we spend quite a bit of time to share the last 7 years as we perfected the ability to dry out and restore rooftops. And what's interesting in the building industry is everybody's always accepted you could dry out the rest of the building. That's actually an RPM company called Legend Brands, Marcy, that we work closely with. They just have never accepted you could dry the roof out. So we like to share that story here. But fundamentally, what it speaks to is we like to keep good stuff good, right? And restore what you already have. And so this is one of our test facilities that's dedicated to doing that for roofing.
So we'll take a deeper dive, as I mentioned, obviously into Roof Tech 2.0. In one of the pictures, Paul's got a sample in his hand, and that's what we do, is we hand out samples of before and after so people can take a look at that.
Yeah, and so one of the key things when you're drying out a facility, and again, our RPM company, Legend Brands, has been doing this for over 50 years, is that you take every component, you flood it for 2 weeks, Marcy, and then you dry it back out, and then you confirm that you can restore it to an as-new structural condition.
Yeah, so as you're holding these two samples, people can't tell the difference between them at all.
Yeah, I always fail to test myself. I can never remember.
Can't remember which one it is. Makes you honest there, Paul. So in talking about restoration, that is another area that we'll focus on. So obviously drying out a roof and not having to replace it is going to save a lot from a sustainability perspective. But we've got a lot of other solutions we're going to bring to you as well. So looking forward to that segment where we'll be able to touch on, different ways that if you have a sealant joint that's failed and how you can bridge over it with some of our pre-cured membranes. How we can go from glass to glass if you have different types of mullions that are leaking air and water, so we can get that back up to being efficient from that perspective. And then imagine some of those thermal capabilities that you're going to be able to achieve, because now you're not going to have a lot of that metal joinery exposed. I might have snuck in the word thermal because I forgot to mention it when we were on the test facility tour, is that we have a variety of different capabilities for testing there, which was another question someone asked, what kind of testing can we do? And we will be able to give you an insider view of what's coming soon, and that is a thermal chamber.
I think what's kind of cool, Marcy, is certainly we believe we have a leadership position in our testing, but we always have one or two projects coming, right? So no sooner do we finish one, and we're always working together to say what's next. And I think we've been talking about the thermal chamber for what, 3 or 4 years, me very impatiently, because the ability to thermally test a wall, right? Thermal testing has long been around on roofing, right? But there are 4 other sides of the building that are exposed to the weather.
Yeah.
So we are incredibly excited.
Yes.
It'll be live, well, fingers crossed, 3 months from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to be the first time that you're going to be able to have a controlled interior environment, controlled exterior environment. You're going to have your wall assembly in the middle. You're going to get a lot of interesting data.
Lots of interesting data. We're so excited because, just as Paul mentioned, it's like an environmental chamber. So we can dial up or dial down on both sides of that wall assembly. We can look at what that thermal efficiency is depending on what kind of anchor systems you're using. So, or no anchor systems if you're using something like Dryvit and EIFS. And then the performance from something like an insulated concrete form from Nudura. So not only were we excited before we had all these different products and services from Dryvit and Nudura as part of our team, now we have even more excitement. So more to come on that for sure. We'll be engaging as that comes along. I know Dante Marin-Petrie's been very busy over there getting things ready, plumbing, electric, the floor, the wall. We had to bust down a wall to get this in. So lots going over there to get this chamber in and ready to go. So with that, since we're still talking about testing, we also wanted to talk about our fire lab. This has always been a very interesting part of our tours. I think we show air and water. When we show air, I don't think people are all that excited unless we get some movement. So sometimes our test assemblies, we have free form movement, so we can really show how the air pressure is causing movement of your structure. When we go to water, we move it up a notch. People are seeing a large amount of water going down that face. We're pulling a pressure. We can get water to pull in through the knot of wood. That's the kind of pressures we're pulling on it. But I think, Paul, when we take them to the fire lab, I think it's a whole different experience.
It is. We're unique in having the only fully UL accredited fire lab in the industry. And that's for a couple reasons. One, of course, it accelerates our ability to do our own fire testing. But we're often helping out people in the design community, because at times there's misunderstanding or misinformation out there in terms of what goes on fire testing. And I think the other thing we do a lot of times is side-by-side testing. Having, meeting stringent fire codes is really, really important, especially after the Greenfell incident in the UK. There's a very heightened global awareness of that. And the ability to visually demonstrate that, you know, I think Marcy, you hit the nail on the head. It's always pretty high impact. And when we run the test burn for our tours, we always do side by side on a panel, something that performs at a very high level and something that doesn't. And these would be systems that are commonly available today to really demonstrate there's a pretty significant difference between different materials.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is having these capabilities for us provides so much insight when we're developing products too. And then it takes us to be able to do that project specific testing. So I can go out there and talk to customers and talk about the need for detailing and what that means. And I could have talked theoretically about it for days because I'm a big nerd, but now I can actually show visual pictures of what that impact could mean for an air situation and what that means from, you know, heating and cooling your building or water damage. And then when we go to something like this, we can test different products, as Paul said, side by side. So we get an indication of what that product may or may not perform. And then if we need to, we get that third party in as well. So we are always working in that partnership of having the third party in to help us validate.
Yeah. We also in our fire lab have another section, Marcy, of course, where's our whole wind uplift capabilities. Yeah. And because in restoration, you're going over the existing substrate, it's so important to validate in the field that existing substrate is meeting code and performance. What's kind of interesting, Marcy, is that today that's actually not required on any new assemblies. And so we're building a whole body of knowledge as we're doing that wind uplift testing in the field, both for our own roofs and our customers. And so that's also part of what we share at the fire lab is the whole wind uplift side of things.
Well, I think that just lends us to that whole idea of thought leadership. So a lot of times we'll look at what's acceptable by code. And in our minds, that's the minimum. That's the bottom of what our expectations are. We like to go and push things beyond so that we have an indication of what that would mean from a durability perspective long term.
Yeah, I like to use the words mode of failure, Marcy, where what we're looking for is an elegant mode of failure. You know, unlike say perhaps a sweater, if you pulled on the thread and the whole sweater came apart,
that would not be good.
That's called inelegant.
Yeah.
But an elegant mode of failure would be like with our Simple Seal product, which is a silicone gasket. And silicone's well known for zippering or tearing. And in Simple Seal, you have what's called knotty tear. You can puncture that and you can pull on it as much as you can and it won't zipper on you. So again, to your point, we like to test the failure so that we actually know what the failure mode is. And what we're looking for is what we call an elegant failure mode that's easy to repair as opposed to a catastrophic failure mode.
Yeah, and that's part of, I think, that thought leadership that we like to be able to provide to the industry. So those lessons learned, I think, are so critical. In talking about something like Simple Seal, just the ability to understand that that's not going to zipper and cause that, you know, catastrophe or, you know, the not elegant failure, I think is a great part of what we try to share with you when you come through this facility, through our facility tour. And those are part of those segments. So each segment that we do with you will be able to give you that insider view and some of those tips and tricks. And what I always like is those do's and don'ts, because I think that really helps you as well along the way. And then, of course, research and development. So that is always a big part of our tours. I know one of the ones I had recently, they were due to come back to the test facility to do a, you know, just a round off, you know, like a question and answer period at the end. What are our action items, you know, debrief. They were like an hour late because we couldn't get them out of the R&D facility. Yeah,
what you see here in these couple pictures is, you know, I think the thing that we've really focused on now over the last, say, 7 or 8 years, Marcy, is seeking to understand things that have always existed in product performance in the field but have never been understood. So it's going after those, typically they're failure modes, because again, if our theory is that things should last forever, then we need to understand the failure modes. And once we understand the mode of failure, then how do we create test methods to force that mode of failure so that when we design a product, right, that we can actually test it to failure. So So our journeys are always interesting. They have some, I call it wandering in the wilderness, to figure out what it is exactly scientifically, how is it failing. Then the test method, so it can force failure. And then developing the systems that no longer have that failure mode. And then it's having the test equipment. So you see in a couple of these pictures here, unique test equipment, very, very expensive, millions of dollars of investment, Marcy, where we're creating that testing because we want to have that building owner have confidence that those systems, our goal is to meet the life expectancy of the building with provable tested performance. So we really look forward to sharing some of those journeys with you, what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think the other thing, Marcy, that happens a lot once we start to attack a certain type of failure, we learn a lot. And I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some is exactly what you'd expect. Some is completely counterintuitive.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it's sort of an, oh my God moment, this is what's actually happening. Yeah. So we'll share that with you very, very openly.
And that's those lessons learned that we want to be able to share. So with that, just to kind of touch on that, the future segments that we want to be able to provide with you. So we believe that this is just step one in our journey together with all of you, however, be it virtually for now. So we're looking forward to having guest speakers, being able to give some different types of mixed media to you. So it may be a video, and we'll take a break, we'll answer some questions. We're gonna check in live with Dante and find out what's new going on over at the test facility. So you'll be able to get a live update on what was tested and those updates on the thermal chamber coming through. And just our ability, once again, to engage.
Yeah, our goal, take a half-hour a week together, deliver a segment of information. I think one of the things we've learned in this online world is 5 or 6 hours together is much too long. So Marcy and I agreed that our time limit's a half hour. I think we're 6 minutes over.
We are a little over.
So we'll get a little better on that. But in this new virtual world we're living in, we think a half hour is about the right segment size.
We met to talk about how we wanted to do this, and as we started to calculate out the time we had with all of you in the past and how we could kind of figure that out, we were like 4 hours, and we're all like, no one said anything, and I'm like, someone's got to tell Paul 4 hours is too long. So thanks to Ken Anderson for saying no. And as we weren't saying 4 hours at that time, we were just trying to figure out the content we had could fill that many hours. So we decided to have this whole idea of what we're going to call the loop. So a segmentation ability, small segments, reaching out to you guys on a regular basis, bringing you certain topics.
And if you miss a week, that's okay. You just hop on. Marcy, I guess we're going to record these so you can you can always catch up.
Yes.
And it's just having you on a continuous information feed with us. It's sort of a podcast, but with video, and trying to take what we did when we hosted you for a day and a half or 2 days, and kind of rethinking how to do it in very digestible virtual chunks.
Yes, exactly. And we want to hear what you want to know as well, right? So if there's certain feedback that you have or information you want to share with us, we'd like to know that and understand that as well. We want to, one more shout out here that just came through. It's something from Rob Swink. He says, thanks to Brian Stroik for a training that he came to in Greensboro, North Carolina in February. We value our relationship with him, and he did a great job. So I just wanted to kind of end it with that. So once again, you're seeing Paul and I, but the resources behind us are many. And so we'll definitely be reaching out to those. And we want to thank you for your attention today, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks.